And hello everyone, Lights and Gear is back to take a look at another flashlight, and today we have something new and different from Lumintop, which in this case is a collaboration with Budget Light Forum. We've seen this happen before with a couple of different manufacturers where the Budget Light or Forum or BLF people have put together a flashlight which is rather unique and has the characteristics of the kind of light which the BLF people like to own and operate. So here we have what they call the FW3A. Interesting naming sequence here. I'm not exactly sure where they came up with this, but it comes in a couple of different versions. This happens to be a cool white, and you can also get it in a natural white version, which will have a slightly different set of LEDs. But here on the FW3A, you'll get a very simple looking flashlight with, in some respects, it's a simple interface, but is also customizable to the user to have a flashlight that'll do more or less what you want it to do. So take the outer sleeve off there, and there we have sort of a typical Lumintop recycled box. Not a lot here to look at, very plain indeed. Inside here's the user manual, and this is in two languages, English on this side and German on the other. And here you have the flashlight inside its little bed here, little foam bed, and right here is a set of spare O-rings. That is the only accessory in the box, the O-rings. Here's the flashlight with a pocket clip already attached. In its form like this, it's very, very, very light. If you add the battery to it, that adds obviously a couple of extra ounces. It takes one 18650 battery. No other battery configurations will work in it. So just one 18650, and once that's put in, depending on the weight of the battery, it'll be just a little over 3 ounces. And it's also very small at under 4 inches, so this is like I think it's 3.6 inches, and it weighs about 3.5 ounces with the battery. As you can see, it's a very plain looking light. There's nothing fancy about it in its appearance at all. You have some knurling down here at the bottom and up at the top, so pretty good grip there. The bottom is the electronic switch, which is almost flush to the bottom, but not to worry, it does have a lockout feature, so you can not worry about it turning on in your pocket, but just a slight little press and a very small amount of sound comes from the switch when operating it. The bottom does not come off. Instead, the battery is inserted from the top. Here are the LEDs. There are 3, and it has a rather interesting lens system here, which I'll show you. 3 LEDs. These are XPL highs, but in the neutral white version, it'll give you a luminous SST20, I believe, LED, or I believe 3 of those. So it'll be a different LED set in the different tinted version. So to put the battery in, you undo the cap, O-ring right here, and here's inside the cap, spring there with the electronics, and battery goes right there. There is a spring in the bottom. One thing they do recommend is to use a high drain IMR or unprotected battery. They say you can use button top or flat top, but I tried a couple of button tops and they didn't work because they were a little bit too long. I have one particular type here, which is a Golisi, and they work very well because as long as it's flush with the top. But so this type of button top works. It's a very flush button top. And here you have a standard Samsung battery, which they would, I mean, they do recommend this type, or perhaps a Sanyo battery, of similar quality, but again you have basically flat top batteries, or rather flat tops on these batteries, so both of these work just fine, but as the battery goes in, you can see it just sort of disappears into the tube. Now if you can actually take the top of the head off, and you wouldn't do this for any other reason other than to do what I'm doing, is to show it to somebody, but it has a very interesting little piece here on the top which just pulls out like that and fits in with these little prongs, but underneath you'll get the LEDs, and it says right there FW3A, and there are your LEDs, and the little prongs there, the little holes where these prongs fit into. Never seen a system quite like this before, so that just fits right back in. Can't do it any wrong way. As long as the holes match up, it's good. This is almost like a little plastic piece here, so it's very interesting. So secure that back down and put the top back down, and you will have light like that. So let's look at a couple of the features of it. It's a very interesting light. It's not much to look at, but performance wise it is a killer flashlight. It is astonishingly bright. The top luminosity, the top lumens is 2800. Within the specifications here, of course, it explains quite a bit. There I'm sorry, I'm showing you the German portion. Here's English up here with your LEDs, the Cree, XPL highs, and there's your intensity at about 200 meters for the beam distance, and it also explains many of the functions down here, and does require, or does suggest rather, the flat top 18650 unprotected cell is recommended. It uses the free software called, and I'm never quite sure how to pronounce it, but there is the software version right there, the ANDURIL, the Anduril, and that's the software it uses. So it has a very interesting interface which can be changed to however you want the light to be. It has two separate user interfaces. It can go ramping, or it can step. The default is ramping, so when you first turn it on, that's what you will see is a ramping flashlight. And the switch, as I say, you just give it one little click. Right now it is set to ramping, so as soon as I press and hold, it'll go up and it'll go down. And like most rampings, if you do it within a couple of seconds of each other, it'll go in the opposite direction than what you're going in at the moment. So you can go up and then down and so forth. It gives a little, see that little twitch there? It does like a little twitch just to more or less show you when you're in the middle or when you're at the top. Little twitch there, and then it goes down to the bottom and goes so low that you can just look right into the LEDs even while they're on. They are on right now, but it's just extremely low. It's probably about less than a lumen right here. Now when it actually goes to the top, you can double click, because the top, when in ramping, isn't even turbo mode. I'm not sure what they would call it, perhaps high, but then double click will give you turbo, and it's very, very, very bright. Let me just turn this off briefly here while I show you how bright. So here's the lowest where it is right now, and a little press of the button there will start to ramp it, and there it gives me the little click, or the little blip when I get to the top there. So it's telling me that it can't go any further than that, but if I double click like that, I get an extra boost and this would be turbo right here. And I'll show you some outdoor shots here in a couple of minutes. But now it's on turbo, and the warning here is that it gets extremely hot in the head. At this point, I can't even touch the head, and I've only had the turbo on for a few seconds. And they don't recommend that the turbo be on for more than 10 seconds. And as a matter of fact, in the manual, it does say that turbo will start to slowly diminish in intensity after only a few seconds. And so right now it's not on turbo, because as soon as I can double click it, and it'll go to turbo again, and then as soon as I click it again, usually it goes, well, in that instance it turned off. But usually from turbo, when I just give it a single click, it'll go back to the last basically mode memory. It'll go back to where it was a moment ago. And then if you click it, it'll go back up again. Or click and hold it, it'll go back up. But still, this is not turbo where we are now. This is more or less just high. And then to hold it again, we'll obviously ramp right down to the bottom where we started at. But you cannot believe how hot it gets, and after only a few seconds on that turbo mode. So that's what you need to be very aware of with that. And it has a nice beam, as you can probably tell. It's very, it's not spot-like at all. It's very muted, but also uniform in the sense that the center is very nice, and you can just see the edges of it here, which have no artifacts or any rings or lines or anything like that. Let me show you the other part of it, the stepping part. Now, to change between ramping and stepping is really easy. All you do is click 3 times, like that. There, I just clicked 3 times, and now what it'll do is it'll step. So if I hold the button like that, it'll start stepping, and then it'll step all the way down. So you can see the steps there, and then it goes all the way down to as low as this. And then to press it again, it'll start stepping upwards. The other thing you can also do, and I have done this, is I have changed the number of steps within the stepping. So what it does is you can take the stepping all the way down to 2 if you like. You can have it set so that it just does the lowest and then the highest. And then with each step you add in there, you obviously get another level of brightness. So that's one unique feature about the stepping part, is that you can add almost an infinite number of steps. I have it right now set at 8, and the default is 7. So when you first get it, when you go into stepping, it'll give you 7 outputs. But I have it set right now, I believe it's 8 I have it at. But that's kind of neat that you can change the number of steps that it has. It has an amazing number of flashing modes. Now, a lot of people will think this is probably, some people may think it's silly, but it has an incredible amount of flashing modes, and it has 2 sets of flashing modes. It also has what they call a muggle mode, and that is reduced output for, basically they say, if you want to loan the light to somebody, if you want to let somebody borrow the light, you can set it to muggle mode, M-U-G-G-L-E, as it says right here. You can set it to muggle mode, and it has a very limited output. It goes from about 2 lumens to 240, and the only thing it does is ramp. It doesn't step, it just does a ramp. Then when it's in muggle mode, it actually slowly ramps down to a lower level once it's on. I'm not sure of the purpose of that, but it's basically made for people who aren't particularly familiar with LED flashlights. It has a lockout feature, And to lock out the light, you click the button 5 times, and then it will automatically lock out, and then you can use it as a tactical light at that point. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It blinks, now it's locked out, and the only operation it will do is this when I tap the button. And the output that it emits from this mode is, it basically uses mode memory from where it was before the operation had started. So if I had had it on moonlight, for instance, and then put it into lockout, all I would get when I did this is moonlight. But because it was a little bit brighter when I put it into lock, that is the output that I get. But it's very responsive, and this can be used for signaling and so forth when it's in this mode, as you can see. Almost like a do-it-yourself SOS or something like that. And then the unfortunate part about this mode is to unlock it, you can't do 5 times again because it doesn't respond to that. It'll just keep doing the same thing. So to unlock it, you have to physically undo the head and cut the power completely. So that's the only unfortunate part to that lockout feature. There we are, we're back where we were before, back in the stepping. There's also a battery output, you know, like a battery voltage meter. So it has that in here, and I believe you have to be off, and then I click it 3 times, and then it starts blinking the battery voltage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So there's my battery voltage at 4.1. And of course it'll just keep doing it until you press the button again. So that's battery voltage. And instant turbo you can get anytime by double clicking. Oh, wait a minute. Let me try that again. There we go. Oh, that is bright. Double click anytime and you get instant turbo. Okay, it's recovered from that now. And let's see. It also tells you the temperature from where you happen to be at any given time. And there's a graph here on how to set the temperature in case what it blinks out does not seem accurate. So they call it thermal configuration. So you can calibrate the actual temperature here by following the instructions. Now, as far as the blinky modes are concerned, the flashing modes, it has the most incredible set of flashing modes I've ever seen. It does do the battery check, so we saw that. It also has a sunset or good night mode, and this is the sunset and good night mode it's for using the light when you go to bed. And it starts at a very low level, and then it slowly dims down to moonlight, stays there for an hour, and then shuts off. As it says here, it is intended for use when going to bed. So that's the good night mode. And then it has beacon, which does what you would assume a beacon does. And there's a configuration setting within beacon as to how you want it to flash. Here's the temperature check down here. And then if you go into the next set of strobes, of which there are 2 different sets of strobes. You can use a candle mode, where it simulates the flickering of a candle. You can do a bike flash. You can do a party strobe. You can do a tactical strobe. Or you can make it look like it's a lightning storm. That's kind of neat, but there's no particular reason for it as opposed to the only thing I can think to use it for would be to amaze your friends. Or if it's raining outside but there's no lightning, you might want to turn this on in lightning mode to simulate that it's actually lightning outside. And that's rather interesting. Although my wife just said it was plain annoying. But be that as it may, the way you get into the blinking modes, Depends on how you press the rear switch. To get into the first set of blinking modes, you just click it 3 times. And to get into the second group, you have to click it twice and then hold it a 3rd time. And you have to do it from the light being in the off position. So I'll turn it off, and then I'll go click, click, hold. Now I will be in the blinking modes, and actually what we have going on right here now is the candle flash, which is the first one. So this is candle mode right now, and if you can see that, it's kind of doing a very light flicker, and it's supposed to simulate a candle or a fireplace. Now if I double click, there you go. It's doing its candle thing now. And you can also set it here to turn off, because as soon as you go into this mode, or it says you can add a 30-minute timer onto it. By triple clicking, you can add 30 minutes to this particular mode, and then it does a burn down simulation at the end. And the timer can go for up to 4.5 hours. So now if I double click, I'll get into the bike flasher mode, and that'll send the camera here into spasms, but it does what you would assume it would do if you were using it on a bike. Now here's the horrible one. Double click, and here's the party strobe, and the camera does not like that one little bit. It's incredibly rapid, so I can't really show it to you properly, but this is party. Double click again and we'll get tactical strobe, and that's almost actually worse than the party one. So I can't even look at that. Double click again and we now get into the lightning mode. And this sort of, well, you can kind of get a little idea here of what's going on. This is very interesting. So it does simulate lightning actually quite well, I would say. And again, you'll either like this or you'll hate it, and there's no particular real reason to even have it except as an oh wow factor. So this is lightning, and it'll just keep doing that, I believe, for as long as you have the light on. So I'll just click it once, and that actually turned it off. But if I click it again, it's actually left. Yeah, it's actually, I just clicked it off, and it's gone out of the blinking modes altogether, and now it's back in the regular sequencing mode. So if you want to read more about all this, of course you can visit my website at lightsandgear.com. Now I think I've teased you long enough, so let's take it outside and see what it looks like in the darkness. Alright, there you go. Outside in the darkness of the night, it does light up an area quite well. Doesn't have a long throw, as you can see, or as you saw, but it'll certainly light up a general area very, 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 very well. So again, I didn't show you the actual flashing modes within the first set, but we did kind of a general synopsis of what they were. Anyway, this is your Lumintop FW3A. There's a link below in this video, and of course, if you visit my website at lightsandgear.com and see more flashlights, batteries, and chargers, you will read the full review of this light there. Plus, you can see other outdoor pictures and whatnot with it, and there's also the link there in which you can pick one up. And that does it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and ask me questions if you need to. And whoa, there it goes. And we'll see you later on for more from Lights and Gear. Thanks for watching. Take care.